My parents didn't disown me for going to college. They disowned me for uncovering a secret that shattered our family's perfect image. And now, 8 years later, that same secret is the only thing that can save them from the monster they created. The irony of it was a bitter pill I never thought I'd have to swallow. I had built a fortress of a life, strong and impenetrable, and now the very architects of my past pain were scratching at its gates, begging for sanctuary from the storm they had welcomed into their own house. 8 years ago, my life was a carefully constructed lie, a stage play where I was the understudy for a role I never wanted. My parents, Arthur and Margaret, were not just parents. They were local royalty in our small, tight-knit town. Their creation, Haven Hardware, was more than a business. It was a landmark. It started as a single store my grandfather opened, and under my father's stern but capable guidance, it had grown into a small, respected chain of 3 stores. It stood for reliability, for family values, for the American dream earned through calloused hands and long hours. My older brother, Clark, was the prince groomed for the throne. He had the easy smile, the firm handshake, the innate ability to make everyone feel like his best friend. I was the shadow, the quiet, introspective son, more comfortable in the back office, surrounded by spreadsheets, invoices, and the hum of servers than on the sales floor. I saw the business not just as a legacy, but as a complex machine, and I understood its gears and levers in a way Clark never bothered to learn. The blueprint for my life had been drawn without my consent. Clark would be the charismatic frontman, the face of Haven Hardware. I would be his loyal lieutenant, managing the operations, the inventory, the unglamorous backbone of the enterprise. It was a role that chafed at my spirit. I had dreams that stretched beyond the town limits, visions of applying my knack for systems and data to the wider world. When I was accepted into a prestigious university's business analytics program, with a partial scholarship no less, I saw a glimmer of a different future. I presented it to my parents not as a rejection, but as an evolution. I can learn things that will help the business grow, I argued. I can streamline our supply chain, implement new inventory systems, analyze market trends. My father dismissed it with a wave of his hand. Book learning, he called it. This is a hands-on business, son. You learn by doing, not by reading about it. Clark needs you here. Family sticks together. That's the only trend that matters. My mother's support was always conditional on my father's approval, and she simply nodded along, offering me a sympathetic but firm smile. Your father is right, dear. This is where you belong. The tension was a slow-burning fuse. It finally reached the powder keg one sweltering July evening. I was working late at the main store, tasked with reconciling the quarterly financial statements. My father was old school. He trusted gut feelings and handshake deals, but he tolerated my digital tinkering because it often saved him money. That night, the numbers refused to align. It wasn't a small discrepancy. It was a persistent, gnawing drain. Significant sums, always between $5,000 and $10,000, were being funneled out of the main operating account every month. The payments were made to a vendor I'd never heard of, Apex Suppliers. They were cleverly disguised as payments for bulk orders of high-end power tools and building materials, goods we supposedly sold a lot of. The only problem was our inventory records showed no such shipments ever being received. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. This wasn't a simple accounting error. This was deliberate. Someone was embezzling from the company. My first naive thought was that we were victims of an external fraud. I spent the entire night digging, cross-referencing invoice numbers, delivery dates, and bank records, building an irrefutable case. The next morning, sleep-deprived and anxious, I went straight to my parents' house, printouts in hand, ready to sound the alarm. Their reaction will be seared into my memory forever. There was no shock, no outrage, no frantic calls to the bank or the police. Instead, a heavy, dreadful silence fell over their pristine kitchen. My father's face, usually flushed with authority, turned a pale, ashen gray. My mother's hand flew to her mouth, but her eyes weren't wide with surprise. They were wide with fear. Then my father spoke, his voice a low, guttural threat I had never heard him use before. You were never supposed to see that. The truth, ugly and suffocating, tumbled out. Apex Suppliers was Clark's secret. It wasn't just a one-time mistake. For years, he had been systematically skimming money from the business to fund a secret life of luxury and vice that was the complete opposite of the humble, family-oriented image he projected. There was a penthouse apartment in the city he kept, a sports car he stored in a garage there, and most damningly, a serious gambling addiction. He was in deep to some very dangerous people, and my parents had discovered his secret year prior. Instead of stopping him, instead of getting him help, they had begun covering for him. They were using company money to pay off his debts, trying to quietly plug the leaks before the whole ship sank, all to protect the family name and their golden child from scandal. I was told, in no uncertain terms, to forget what I had seen. Clark is under a lot of pressure being the heir, my mom pleaded, her voice trembling. He made some mistakes, but we're handling it. As a family, you need to understand the pressure he's under. I was utterly horrified. This wasn't a mistake. It was a cancer, and they were feeding it. I refused to be complicit. I told them this was unsustainable, that it would destroy the business and bankrupt them all. I said if they didn't confront Clark and put an immediate stop to it, I would have to go to the police myself. It was a bluff, I think, born of desperation to shock them into doing the right thing. It backfired catastrophically. The mask of the loving family shattered completely. My father surged to his feet, his chair screeching against the tile floor. You would send your own brother to jail? He roared, his spittle landing on my face. You would drag the name your grandfather built through the mud for this? You are not a son of mine. You are a snake, an ungrateful wretch. My mother, her tears now ones of pure rage, screamed at me. You're jealous. You've always been jealous of Clark. You're trying to destroy him to take his place. I was given an ultimatum. Keep my mouth shut, fall in line, and help them protect Clark or get out of their lives forever. I looked at their faces, twisted by a loyalty so blind it was suicidal, and I knew I could never be a part of it. I left their house that day feeling like I was walking through a nightmare. I packed a single bag in my apartment. When I went to the store to collect my personal items from the office, my dad was there. He didn't look at me. He simply handed me my final paycheck. Cash, I noted, and turned his back. My mom didn't come to say goodbye. Clark, however, was leaning against the doorframe of his office, a smug, triumphant smirk on his face. As I walked out for the last time, I heard him say, "Don't worry, Mom, Dad. I'll make sure the business thrives." We never needed him anyway. The severance was absolute and brutal. The first few years on my own were a relentless grind of survival. I used the little money I had to stay in school, but my partial scholarship didn't cover everything. I worked 2, sometimes 3 part-time jobs, stacking shelves, washing dishes, doing data entry. There were months I lived on instant noodles and slept in my rusty, decade-old hatchback because I couldn't make rent. The loneliness was a physical ache. They blocked my number on their phones. My letters were returned unopened. When I tried to reach out through a cousin, I was told my parents had spun a story that I had left to pursue a selfish, hedonistic lifestyle in the city and had willingly turned my back on the family business. I was painted as the prodigal son who never looked back. So I stopped looking back. I funneled all my anger, my hurt, and my sharpened sense of betrayal into my work. I graduated at the top of my class and landed a job at a burgeoning tech startup that specialized in financial security and fraud detection software. My personal experience with deception made me unnaturally gifted at spotting the subtle patterns and digital footprints of deceit. I could feel the ghost of apex suppliers in every line of code I wrote. I rose through the ranks not through charm, but through relentless competence, eventually becoming the lead developer on a flagship project, a sophisticated AI-driven algorithm designed to detect complex money laundering and embezzlement schemes for major national banks. The poetic justice was not lost on me. I was building a world-class career out of the very sin that had exiled me. In the ashes of my old life, I built a new one, strong and beautiful. I met Rose at a friend's party. She was a nurse, pragmatic, and fiercely compassionate, with a quiet strength that grounded me. She knew I had a past I was reluctant to discuss, and she never pushed, offering only unwavering support. We built a life together, a modern house in a nice neighborhood, vacations to places I'd only seen in magazines, a shared peace I had never known was possible. We were happy. The past was a closed book. Then, last month, the book was violently ripped open. I was mowing the lawn on a Saturday afternoon when a beat-up sedan I didn't recognize pulled up to the curb. The woman who got out was a stranger, and yet familiar. It was my mother, but it was a ghost of her. She looked 20 years older, her face etched with deep lines of worry and fear, her hair streaked with more gray than should have been there. Her eyes, once bright with a carefully maintained cheerfulness, were hollow and haunted. She wasn't holding a plate of cookies or a bouquet of flowers. She was wringing her hands together, her knuckles white. "Please," she whispered, her voice raspy and cracked, as if she hadn't used it in weeks. "You have to help us. It's Clark. They're going to kill him. They're going to kill all of us." I didn't invite her in. I stood on my porch, the hum of the lawnmower dying away, leaving a silence filled only with her ragged breathing. I listened, my body rigid, as she unraveled a story far worse than anything I could have imagined. Clark's gambling hadn't just continued. It had metastasized. The dangerous people he was in debt to weren't just local loan sharks. They were a tentacle of a sophisticated, multi-state organized crime syndicate. And they hadn't just been collecting debts. They had seen the perfect opportunity in my weak-willed brother and my parents' terrified compliance. For the last few years, they had been using Haven Hardware's legitimate cash flow and its Apex Suppliers shell company to launder massive amounts of their own dirty money. My family had become unwilling, but compliant, accomplices in a major criminal operation. Now, the syndicate wanted more. They wanted a permanent, deeper integration. They wanted to install their own people in the business to use it as a primary front. Clark, and by extension my parents, had refused, finally understanding the true depth of the abyss they were in. The syndicate's response was not a negotiation. A week ago, one of our smaller, out-of-town store locations had been firebombed in the middle of the night. The message was clear and terrifying. "They're watching us every second," my mom sobbed, her composure completely disintegrating. "They call the house. They follow your father to the bank. Clark, he's a ghost. He doesn't sleep. He just paces. He says he sees their faces everywhere. They'll kill us all. You're the only one who can help. You work with the police, with the big banks. You know about these things. You have connections. You can make them stop. Please." I felt a chilling wave of vindication, so potent it made me dizzy, followed immediately by a profound, soul-crushing weariness. They had nurtured the viper, fed it, and defended it with everything they had. They had sacrificed me on the altar of their denial. And now, with the viper poised to strike, they had the audacity to run to the son they had discarded, expecting him to be their savior. "I can't help you. I said, my voice sounding flat and alien to my own ears. You made your choice 8 years ago. You chose the son who is destroying everything over the one who tried to warn you. You don't get to come to my home, to the life I built without you, and ask me to dive into your nightmare. My mother didn't just cry. She collapsed. Her legs gave way, and she fell to her knees on my perfectly manicured lawn, her body racked with ragged, guttural wails of pure despair. I know we were wrong. We were blind, stupid fools. But he's your brother. I'm your mother. Please, don't let them murder your brother. Don't let them kill your father. You're our only hope. You have to forgive us. It was a horrific, undignified spectacle. Rose, hearing the commotion, came rushing out. Her face paled at the scene. Without a word, she moved past me, her nurse's instincts taking over. She knelt down, speaking in soft, calming tones, and gently helped my trembling mother to her feet. I stood my ground, a statue of resentment, the memories of my father's fury and Clark's smirk acting as a shield against her pain. I didn't offer comfort. I didn't offer hope. I called a rideshare on my phone, paid for in advance, and physically guided my weeping mother into the back seat. I watched the car disappear down the street, her desperate, tear-streaked face pressed against the window, a final, haunting image of the consequences of their choices. For days afterward, I was a ghost in my own home. I couldn't eat. I couldn't focus. Rose was my rock, but I could see the worry in her eyes. I know what they did to you, she said one evening, holding my hand. And I would never tell you what to do, but they are your family. And this is life and death. It's a burden no one should carry. That stopped being my family the day they chose a criminal over me. I replied, but the words fell hollow. The weight of their potential deaths was a crushing, inescapable pressure on my chest, no matter how much I tried to rationalize it. A week of tense silence passed. Then Clark found me. He didn't come to the house. He knew better. He ambushed me in the concrete cavern of my office parking garage, just as I was getting into my car after a late night. He was a horrifying caricature of the brother I remembered. His expensive suit was rumpled and stained. He had lost a significant amount of weight, and his hands wouldn't stop shaking. His eyes, bloodshot and wide with paranoia, darted around the shadows constantly. "They know I'm here," he whispered, his voice cracking with panic. "They're testing my loyalty. They said if I can't get you to back off, they'll kill Mom and Dad first and make me watch. They'll send me their fingers in a box." "Back off from what, Clark?" I asked, my patience worn thin. "I'm not involved in this. I haven't done anything." "Your project," he hissed, grabbing my arm with a clammy hand. I shook him off violently. "The algorithm you're developing for the National Bank Consortium. The Sentinel program. They're terrified of it. Their tech people say it could expose their entire national operation, that it's a generation ahead of anything else. They think you built it specifically to target them because of what happened with me. They're paranoid. They want you to sabotage it. Insert a backdoor, a vulnerability they can exploit. If you do it, they'll leave our family alone. They promised. We can all just walk away." The sheer global scale of their audacity took my breath away. This wasn't about saving a local hardware store anymore. They weren't just asking me to clean up their mess. They were demanding I become a traitor on a massive scale. They wanted me to betray my career, my ethics, my country, and compromise the financial security of millions of people to save their own skins from a threat they had willingly, if foolishly, embraced. I looked at my brother, this pathetic, broken shell of a man who had been the source of so much pain in my life. I felt no anger in that moment, only a vast, empty pity and a cold, crystalline certainty about what I had to do. "No," I said, the words simple and final. Clark's face crumpled like paper. "They'll kill us. They will. You're signing our death warrants." "Then you should have gone to the police years ago, Clark," I said, my voice eerily calm. You should have gone to them the first time they threatened you, instead of letting Mom and Dad become accomplices. That was always the only way out. I got into my car and locked the doors. As I reversed out of the space, I saw two large men in a dark, unremarkable sedan pull up and block Clark's car. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I drove away, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I wrestled with the ghosts of my past, the terrifying reality of the present, and the ominous future my inaction could create. I thought about my parents being murdered. I thought about the syndicate continuing its operations, enabled by my cowardice. I thought about the integrity of the work I had dedicated my life to. As the sun rose, casting a pale, hopeful light into our bedroom, I knew there was only one path I could take and still look at myself in the mirror. I went to the FBI. The following 48 hours were a blur of intense, high-stakes activity. I was placed in a secure, windowless room at the local field office. I handed over everything I had, the old data patterns I remembered from Apex suppliers, the names Clark had let slip during his panic in the garage, the description of the men and their sedan, the entire sordid history. I signed waivers granting them access to my work on the Sentinel algorithm, explaining how its patterns could be cross-referenced with their existing intelligence on the syndicate. My personal tragedy had suddenly become a national security case. The Sentinel program, which I had built from the ground up, became a key weapon in their arsenal, its parameters tuned to specifically hunt for the digital fingerprints of this particular criminal organization. The investigation moved with breathtaking speed, a testament to how much the FBI already knew and how valuable my information was. It took 3 months. The arrests made national headlines. Major organized crime syndicate dismantled in multi-state sting. The headlines screamed. Financial fronts exposed by cutting-edge tech. My family was swept up in the operation. They were taken into protective custody initially, but were later charged as willing accomplices to money laundering and conspiracy. My testimony was the cornerstone of the case against them. I sat in a witness box and, under oath, detailed the 8-year-old cover-up, my disownment, and the recent extortion attempt. It was the most emotionally devastating experience of my life, watching my parents and brother in the courtroom, seeing the complex storm of shame, regret, and residual hatred in their eyes. In the end, a deal was struck. Clark, facing the most severe charges, agreed to testify against the higher-ups in the syndicate in exchange for a reduced sentence. He would still be in federal prison for a long time, but he would likely live. My parents, portrayed as victims of coercion who were in over their heads, received probation and were entered into the witness protection program. They would have to disappear to become different people, their old lives erased. I never saw them again after the trial concluded. The family business, Haven Hardware, the legacy my grandfather had built with his own hands, was seized by the federal government as a criminal asset and liquidated. The stores were shuttered, the signs taken down. The legacy was gone, not with a slow decline, but with the final, echoing crash of a judge's gavel. Sometimes on quiet evenings when I'm sitting on the porch with Rose, watching the sunset, I wonder if I did the right thing. I could have turned my mother away. I could have let the syndicate solve my problem for me in the most permanent way imaginable. But deep down, I know I didn't do it for them. I did it for me. I did it for the idealistic, truth-seeking young man they had thrown away all those years ago. I finally finished what he started. I exposed the lie at the heart of our family. And in doing so, I didn't just bring down a criminal enterprise. I finally, completely, set myself free from the ghosts of my past. The fortress of my life had been tested, and it had held stronger than ever.